All right. Hey guys, my name is Ben Merrill. I am a sophomore from Ankeny, Iowa. I am studying psychology and medical anthropology. I'm a Dean's Fellow in the College of Arts and Sciences. I'm a Welcome Week leader. I did summer preview as a leader as well. More about me. I was a Freaky Fast delivery driver this summer. Go JJs. I have a mild snap story obsession with my German Shepherd Diesel. Many of you already know that. And I also suffer from anxiety and depression. When I was asked to come up with a speech for this event and come share my story with you all, I bounced around a lot of themes that I can maybe talk about, and I always came back to the idea that anyone can suffer from a mental illness. Even someone who's as externally happy and involved in their activities as I am. When I first began to not feel well during my senior year of high school, I was taking 6 AP classes, I was student council president, was putting in hours and hours after school every day in my other extracurriculars, and making minimum wage at the local deli just wasn't cutting it anymore. I was overworked and underpaid. I was incredibly moody and irritable. Took that on a lot of people, but especially my family, which is one of my greatest regrets to this day. That's not fair to them in any way, shape, or form. And I stopped getting joy out of a lot of things I love to do. It got to the point where I didn't see my work, school, or activities as anything but a waste of my time, which was incredibly unusual for someone like me. My parents are very smart people who have quite their own experience in this world, and especially on the topics of mental illness, which is something I would have acknowledged when I was back in high school. And they came to recognize my symptoms right away of anxiety and depression. After one particularly bad meltdown, just one Saturday after work, I was just so full of frustration and confusion and anger. I remember, if you could sum up my senior year of high school, my first semester of my senior year of high school, internally and how I felt in one word, it was angry. I was so angry with myself, with how I felt, with why I felt this way, because I didn't know. And I was angry with the people who were just trying to help me. My parents made me an appointment with a family practice doctor to talk about the idea of putting me on some sort of medication. This was absolutely not what I wanted to hear from them. I didn't want to be told that there was anything wrong with me. I was fine. I couldn't be fixed by some frumpy doctor with cold hands, a bottle of pills, and an incorrect opinion. I did want that to be funny, thank you. I held on to the idea, well, yes, I knew there was something wrong with me. Mental illness wasn't going to be it. I wasn't weak, and that's what I thought, with the stigma of mental illness, I wasn't a weak person. This isn't what is wrong with me. I hadn't been through anything traumatic in my life. My parents are happily married. They work really hard to give my sister and I the best life that we can have. My dog is super adorable. I love my friends. There is nothing wrong with my life. I didn't understand why I'd be feeling this way. Even though my parents had sat down with me and explained to me many times my genetic predisposition generations back for mental illness, it wasn't what I wanted to believe, and so I decided I didn't need any help. I remember being horribly upset with my parents, literally screaming and crying when they made me go to that doctor's appointment and afterwards. Which is something, looking back, was so ridiculous, as it undeniably changed the course of my life for the better. But at that time, I felt so betrayed and lost over the suggestion of it. And beginning medication was really tough. For those of you who don't know how antidepressant medications work, the side effect profile that comes with it is really what you deal with for the first 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, even maybe 12, 13 weeks before you start seeing effects of getting better. And so what that meant for my family was them stepping on eggshells for another 2 to 3 months while I sat in my room, basking in my own misery, trying to sift through the bleak, shades of gray of my psyche, and sorting these things into black and white. Meanwhile, I started seeing a therapist, and I learned that while therapy can be incredibly beneficial, it only works if you want it to, and if you're willing to talk to someone about it. Going into a room that has this big fluffy couch with a myriad of pillows, and sitting with a lady who has her masters hung up on the wall, won't make you feel better. I was so caught up in the stigma of what having a mental health issue meant that I let the shame and guilt of something that I couldn't control guide my actions. I would miss my 8th period classes quite frequently, probably once or twice a week during my senior year, to go to my therapy appointments. And I told people that I was just really tired or had stuff going on. If they asked me what was up, I suffered from bad panic attacks. It'd just be something I'd be going through. I'd be sitting out the back of my mind, and then all of a sudden it'd be as if I got hit by a semi-truck. I remember one time I was in the shower getting ready to go to the music hall. Solo was in the second act, it was riveting. But I was getting ready to go, first night, got this, and I was on the bathroom floor, shuddering, the hot water hitting my face, bawling. I remember my dad coming in my room, and he just helped me until I felt better to go. I never seen him so afraid for me, and I was never so afraid of myself. But at the same time, I knew what I had to do. So I sat down, took a deep breath, bottled it up, went, killed it, smiled for everyone, and that's how I dealt with my mental illness. It was a very private affair because I was just so ashamed of who it made me. How I dealt with my mental illness. I didn't want anyone to know that I didn't have it together, even my parents or the therapist that they paid lots of money for me to go talk to. Which is why, until today, I pride to keep the fact that I self-harmed and dealt with intense suicidal thoughts for about 4 to 5 months from the 3 people who could have helped me most in my life. Led them to believe I was getting better because I was afraid of what people would think of me or what would end up happening to me if I did reach out for help. And if that makes anyone uncomfortable for me to stay up here, yes, I self-harmed. Yes, I considered suicide. That's good. It really is, because I can't stand up here and preach about how we need to open up dialogue and increase advocacy and be more aware of our peers if I can't admit to myself or how many other people in this room deal with things like anxiety, depression, obsessive compulsive disorder. The list goes on and on. As dark of a place that mental illnesses can be, or how crude and uncomfortable they are to hear about, if we can't listen to them, then we can't get closer to erasing the stigmas that surround mental health that keep people trapped in those dark places. And I've come a long way since that winter of my senior year, where I would lay awake more nights than I would sleep, and I couldn't look myself in my own mirror because of the shame I felt for who I was. That being said, I'm still dealing with my condition. I switched medications this summer, which I'm so incredibly thankful that I got to do when I was at home, not having to deal with the stressors of academia and being in the comfort of my family. I'm not saying that either as a way of asking for a crunch or sympathy as I'm still dealing with this, but rather that it shouldn't be a defining factor of who you are. I certainly don't intend on portraying myself as someone who is Ben with mental illness. There's still bad days, but there's a whole lot of really, really good ones as well. And if you're going to take anything from mine coming and talking here today, let it be this. 50% of all lifetime cases of mental illness appear in someone by the age of 14, 75% of those by age 24. Yet the average delay between the onset of symptoms and intervention is 8 to 10 years. And in 90% of all cases of suicide, the person had an underlying mental illness. 14 to 24 years old. It's middle school, high school, your undergrad, and the beginning of graduate school. During that time in your life, this time in our lives, if you can reach out to one person and be that light for them, let them know that there is hope and there is help. Think of all the lives that we could change for the better. If we weren't afraid to talk about bipolar disorder or anorexia the way we are, like the way we can talk about diabetes or a sprained ankle, there can be so much progress made today. And I'd like to end this by thanking everyone for coming out here today. Just by sitting in these seats, you're showing people in this room and people that walk out of the Harper Center that you're an ally to those with mental illness and that you're supportive of that. I'd like to thank my parents who are in the back. Hi, Joe and Karen. They drove all the way from Ankeny to come hear me speak, and they're so incredibly loving and supportive of everything I do, as I would not be here without them. And I'd like to thank Katie and the rest of Active Minds for putting this together. It's a great event. They've got a lot of great things in store for you. So thank you for listening to me tonight.